we rolling?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Press play on that one's all.
Yeah, that one's
its thing.
going. That one's doing its thing.
Beautiful. So I guess I asked you now to do the clap.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Cue interview. Nice. Welcome to Talking Dark Live. You're not seeing things. Old mate here has swapped positions, and you've got me kind of playing a sort of improvised host. We'll just talk about how weird it is being on kind of the other side of this. Like, sight lines are different, vibe's kind of different. But I think my understanding is that people have been asking about kind of getting you on this side of the camera, just to talk a little bit about, you know, your approach to your project, to this kind of whole weird exchange.
Yeah.
So let's kind of, like, how's it felt? Like, what's been the?
I have not breathed in about a week.
Yeah.
It's nice that I'm doing this with you, actually, because, you know, I have to say, it's probably the first chance I've had in a while, and the last chance I'll get to actually think about what I've been doing for the last 2 years. And it's not going to sink in for a bit, you know. Probably when Bella goes off home and we all go to our different reaches of the world, it's probably going to feel a bit more real.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think until I finish all the videos, it's all still very fresh, I think.
Yeah, and then you're 1 of the 5 year kids, right? Yeah. So there's a whole other level of bittersweet with like, this has been like a massive chunk of kind of your adult life.
Yeah, well, not just that too. I guess in those Zoom calls where you guys all learn more about me than I think you originally bargained for.
Yeah,
and
it was really interesting because I was listening to the chat with TC, I think, and she was trying to remember the sequence of who kind of initiated what, and it was definitely you who kicked that off. I think I did the first one,
right,
and just showed a bunch of work, and then I feel like you were the following week, and you just went in like hardcore. Here's my belly, just like let me just expose myself in a way that is just going to like strip all the fucking kind of nonsense of us being kind of humans meeting each other for the first time kind of out of the equation. And the following week, I'm pretty sure, you know, TC opened up about some stuff and just really set the tone, I think, for just the way we engage with each other.
I mean, like, it's, you know, it's hard for me to take any credit for that, but it's it was definitely interesting, and I think part of that was informed by, you know, just coming out of a degree. I was already very, very tired, I think, when I came in, you know, like there's a toll of doing one thing for enough time that I've always felt just as a creative person. I just can't do it. I can't explain it, but I also can't stay still for long enough. But what was interesting about that was, you know, I felt really conflicted about the fact that I'd made some really close friends here that, you know, like I feel about you now, I consider you like a brother, bro. And it would be strange to me to become a part of a new environment with people not understanding who I was and where I'd come from. And I mean, as well too, like, you've kind of all seen me grow into myself. For me, it feels like the first time. You know, people have known me for a long time. They've known I really care about mental health, and I've had different problems and all that stuff, and the rehab. But for me, it was, you know, I was kind of fully cognizant and able to feel fully and appreciate others for only about 18 months until I came here for the BFA. So there was kind of this, and not just feeling like I needed to give you guys better access to who I was so that you could understand what I was about to do. I didn't know I was going to make a podcast. I just knew something had to change because I was feeling very depressed.
Because that's really interesting, right? Because you jumped around a bunch when we started off, and it's kind of interesting that, I think, as probably a lot of folks do, let me just check myself when I'm saying this. No, I think it works. There's this kind of like, I remember you were talking about world building at kind of an early stage. That very first time we sat around the table, and you know, it felt like it was through a bunch of different lenses, but it was somehow the way I was anticipating what your project would become, and the way you were describing it. I think at that point it felt kind of external to you. But it's fascinating that, like, in essence, what you're describing is like you kind of world built your own sense of place here. You world built your kind of relationship to these other, you know, folks who are kind of kicking around in our little universe. You know, it's.
Yeah, I think that's very fitting, because I mean, do you remember Henri gave that really great talk about this constant friction between what you can actually achieve yourself and what will actually get done out there, and how that really takes a toll on a person, and that's been affecting me, I think, for some time. That, you know, how could I keep working towards something when it doesn't generate a lot in terms of who's around me? And even if the world building kind of dropped off in a sense, I think what Joseph Boyes really opened up for me in his social sculptures and this attacking the everyday with artistic liberty, it was, well, how can I use this clear skill I've had for my entire life in building relationships and staying close with people, how can I turn that into a professional asset and build a practice that doesn't make me want to kill myself? You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was, and I guess that's what I'm sort of thinking. I think there's some sliding doors universe where, you know, a version of you pursues this thing that's always just outside of yourself. But I think what we got instead was this thing that, you know, was it just lent into your own vulnerability. You know, it lent into your this thing that, you know, is clearly really fundamental to kind of who you are. This kind of this series of social connections that are played out in all sorts of different ways. You know, world building meets kind of relationship building, like it's those things together. And I think you know, this project, you know, and these interviews and the kind of archive that you've created through this, you know, it's a really fascinating record of that.
Yeah, I mean, even on the world building too, like, it was a very natural continuum in that, like, it all started before the masters actually, when, because I originally thought I want to be a teacher. I'm going to be a teacher like you are now, you know, end up like Marianne. And I met Tara and Maddie like super early on, and they became such.
That was like a drawing week kind
drawing week. I was interning, and you know, that really uncovered for me in like something I found interesting about teaching, and think I will try and do more of it, is kind of using personable skills to work around different aptitudes, not only for the artwork, but for being able to share and discuss ideas and do that. I found that very interesting, and I think in that week it really opened up the idea that if you give any person enough time and enough care, you will see a whole world in their eyes, in their words, in their thoughts. And that's something that I'm still amazed by, is you know, everyone I sit down with, perhaps not so much on this because it's so tightly packaged and we're running on half an hour, but
and also, you know, like where there's this, you know, we've been talking about our projects, right? And you know, they're these tiny little things of much vaster, more complex kind of sets of experiences that are our weird little kind of bios and relationships and stuff. But I'm definitely amazed on, like, Talking Dark, my normal show, that it's hard to call it a show because it doesn't have a schedule. It's more like an artwork, I consider. It's like a portrait, really. Can we pause and talk a little bit about that, because I think that's really interesting. This is Talking Dark
light
/live, Well, in person. I mean, in that, like, we're here at school. There's been audiences for some of the interviews. Listening to kind of the free-form ramblings that are the Talking Dark kind of podcast version, where it's much more like fly on the wall style. Sort of, I'm just overhearing two people have some beers and talk through a whole bunch of stuff. And then I know those come with a similar amount of kind of like prior research. You have a sense of kind of like some of the talking points, but to me these interviews felt very different to the sort of 4 or 5 of the kind of longer form podcasts that I kind of listen to. Like, give us your take on that.
Yeah, so that's actually, I mean, I can't say intentional because, we both know I don't work that way. I just instinctually work through my day and the challenges of my day and whatever fucked up shit's in my head.
Yep.
And I just try and make the best of it. Like,
Yep.
that's all
Yep.
I can realistically say. But, recently the parameters of what happens next has really changed for me. Like, as you know, I'm writing a book.
Yep.
That's going to be my income for the next 6 months or so, and I'm going to have to put some more time to that. But also, I've got, Lisa wants to talk about mental health and spirituality and our history. So that is happening, and then my mate Big Jack wants to start a comedy podcast.
Yeah, nice.
So.
Hello, no one is available to take your call. Please leave a message after the tone.
Hey brother, hope you're well. Got another fucking story for you, but in giving you a prompt, I want to know if you've ever had to talk someone up to do something that you would never do yourself. And I'll tell you about my 3 days with a banker in rehab. Right, hurrah. Love you, brother.
Bro, what a question. That's like my biggest regret in life, actually, was when I was in Vancouver. I remember I went out with all these new people who I started this job with in a call center after our first week of training. And so we're out till like 2 a.m. and we walked through like the junkie area of Vancouver, and I was like, we should smoke some fucking crack. And everyone thought I was fucking crazy, but I essentially was like, no, it's good, it's fine. But I got this girl who'd never smoked crack before to do it first. I'd had like 1 puff of crack in my life, but I just wanted to oh my god, I'm just realizing what a terrible person I am. This is already a big regret, but now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, holy shit. Anyway, she smoked crack, I smoked crack, and the crack addicts we've also smoked crack. Victimless crime, really.
Jack wants to start a comedy podcast.
Yeah, nice.
So, aside from like how these things have ended up, there is this mechanical thing of, well, I do need a trial by fire so that I can make regular content with these people. Because my own show is not sustainable, and I'm not willing to budge Talking Dark even an inch for anything. I've really fallen in love with the process of just taking someone's thoughts over an evening and turning that into a film. And I think the parameters for that are very different to normal communication in a media sense.
Okay.
Whereas here it was much more, and I think I haven't been as intense into the academia as I think I originally wanted to.
Yeah.
And that's more been a thing of fatigue, to be really honest with
Sure.
you.
Well, I mean, 2 interviews a day for pretty much the whole period here, on the back of everything.
Yeah,
Just to get
it's not
set up.
sustainable. And I'm
Yeah.
amazed that I actually got 7 or 8 days in with a video a day.
Yeah.
And, you know, the rest of the videos will come in coming days. But I really want to put kind of more time into these last ones than I have
Yeah.
for the first few.
Yeah.
But, you know, with Melinda's and Bella this morning, I was really sure to be on the game. But yeah, it has felt like more of a balancing act to touch on the life stuff, which I find most important, whilst also giving enough voice for you guys to all say a bit about your work.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that has dictated the discussion more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, I imagine, I speak from my experience, but I'm sure it's other people. I mean, that's been really interesting that there's our lives and our work. You've kind of encouraged a collapse of those things, you know, in the way you've kind of modelled that in your own practice. You know, it feels like there's at best the lines are blurry between, you know, what's Ollie's practice, what's Ollie's life. Like those things are, and I mean, that back to that kind of vulnerability stuff. You know, that kind of willingness to sort of set a particularly kind of honest, authentic tone in your engagement with folks. I think those things, you know, have been a way of just cutting out some of that fluff in the middle, and like allowing folks to just, you know, jump between like their work being them being their work.
Yeah.
You know, those connections that are just there.
Yeah, and I think it's. I mean, that is one thing that is very conscious. Is like, all right, how can we break this down so that, because it's clear that this otherness of the Western view clearly affects society. Like it clearly has a role in people coming into a gallery. Painting's a painting, sculpture's a sculpture.
Yeah.
In this part of the world, at least, we've gone 50 years without branching much further. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as much as I love artist talks, like if you gave a talk at the gallery, I would come, I would watch, I would love it.
Yep.
But I would also get the sense that no one aside from me was enjoying it.
Sure.
Or perhaps they were trying to enjoy it but not understanding.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the idea of just using the lack of care I have for myself to just kind of go all out and play the fool and surprise people with how smart I can be on my day.
Yeah.
And using your term again, use comedy and use honesty as a Trojan horse for the much more complex areas of what we're doing, you know?
Yep. Yeah, totally. Totally. Can we... my brain's still, whenever I think about your work, do we need to take a break a sec?
Yeah, let's take a break actually.
Done.
I'll just switch over the camera. We've got tons of memory space now.
I'm a nature freak. I love to walk through the woods and talk to the animals. Don't tell anybody that. I even talk to trees at times. We spend so much of our life walking around, looking with never seeing.
I'm going to ink. Put this watercolor. It had different grays. Some of them mixed with the clay. Put it gently over the pelican. So now what I do is I practice the ancient 16th century art of pelican crossing. Go around a bit like a stencil. This is printmaking. This is printmaking.
Are you a history buff? Do you study that kind of stuff at all?
No, not really. I'm an art buff, and I
Art buff?
I went to the Tate Modern Museum years ago in London, and they had like, it was a bathroom shelf and like a glass of water, and the artist called it Oak Tree. And then underneath it, there was an interview. It was like, why is this Oak Tree? Because I say so. I'm like, ooh la la.
Yeah.
And it probably cost $8 million, and so I never went back there. Well, art buff. Well, I just have a problem with a Rothko or like a Pollock. I mean,
Whoa, easy.
art buff, any sort of abstract art, I have a problem with it because I know there's skill and there's like tonal whatever. But like, I don't understand it. Like, I bought a portrait, a 16th century portrait recently of this old lady, and I was the only person that bid on it. It is beautiful.
Right.
And this must have taken hours and hours
No.
and hours.
I tell you what I think it is. This is, as I understand it, and I'm sure you'll tell me otherwise.
Art buff.
But this is, as I understand it, that it was born out of, I believe it was Duchamp, right?
Right.
Who, in the rejection of the Impressionists, was trying to reject retinal art, right?
Right.
And to make it more cerebral art. So he was saying art doesn't just have to be a visual experience, it can be a more visceral or maybe intellectual experience than just something you look at a pretty picture.
I know.
No, art buff.
And then if you return to retinal enjoyment of it, then it's all right. Oh, look, that's a nice blue thing. Then that's fine.
That's the thing, but the nice blue thing costs $40 million.
Well,
that's the croissant.
Well, that's a different argument. That's a different argument. That's the commercialization of art right there. I mean, you don't...
You're the creator. Anything that you want, you can build here. This is your world.
All good. Play again. Beautiful. Back for round two. It's weird. I teach a lot, but doing someone else's work is kind of funny. I mean, I've kind of watched and listened to so much of your content. There is this kind of, even when you're giggling away at a blooper or there's something very natural about you being on this side with the guest on the other side. So yeah, just forgive me as I fumble through this.
That's all good.
But so that collage thing that I was kind of really interested in with your paper making, the sort of printmaking practice meets a kind of pseudo, I don't know, installation practice. I mean, your studio was always kind of more of a social space than a workspace. You know, in that you were using the printmaking studios here at the school to do a lot of the copper works. You were drawing off site. These interviews were sort of being recorded in your place, other people's places, a lot of post-production at home. But I'm kind of interested in, I think I was trying to get my brain around the idea of your collage practice, this idea of just sampling from all sorts of different sources in relationship to what we'll post-produce onto the back wall here. The kind of visual collage that is the sort of accompaniment to these interviews, the kind of grabbing all of these people together and sort of collaging them into the overarching kind of Talking Dark project. Give me some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, like, thanks for that. I mean, that's super important to what I'm doing, because it's, as I said before, on any given day, I'd make the best of how I'm feeling that day.
Sure.
Which current conditions, chronic stress, whatever.
Yeah. Do you know you've got this funny, like, it's like a poker tell, and it's the sound of your footprints.
The shuffling.
It's so funny that there were days where you would ninja in, and I'd be doing whatever, and like, oh fuck, Ollie's here.
Yeah.
There would be days where I'd hear the lift open, and it was just like, I'm like, oh man, this one's gonna be bad.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's funny.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, but that's kind of it. Is like, my paper took so long to get together because most of it has been making sense out of it, and it's really, honestly, I have to thank, Ben Denham, Molly Duggins, Marianne Coots. They've all really helped me along in just trying to find anything that supports what I'm doing, because I think...
Because am I right in thinking, I mean, you could you could almost think of the way you wrote that paper as a kind of collage.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is it's everything has kind of, once I started drawing those connections with you guys between, well, why am I being just an artist? I've grown up being a performer.
Sure.
I play all these instruments. Most of what I know is framed around my musical education.
Yeah.
Why would I let go of all that in shaping my artistic identity?
Yep.
And I think what I've found is, you know, in making the paper, like, Marianne was disappointed book burning at the beginning. She was like, that was the best bit, even if it makes no sense.
Yeah,
like,
too funny. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I agree with you, but like, so often, like, just me seems to conflict with the academic structure. It's got little to do with anything else. But the way I make the paper, the way I do the essay, it's all around this situational awareness and not using as little reasoned thought as I can. You know, like, I read a lot, I do a lot of, you know, heavy work in my own time. But when I'm performing, when I'm making work, when I'm doing something, I don't want to be thinking about it at all. And it is kind of interesting how different things affect each other. And like, the more I've been podcasting, the more just humour I've involved in this stuff, the more, like, you know, I'm walking into you and like, oh, look, I made a dick. You know?
Totally.
Found this book of roses, like, knowing, growing and showing. And very quickly, like, that became the shit I lived for. You know, like, coming in, having a giggle. You know, feeling a bit better in the day. That, you know, that's what I'm all about. And if I can find a way to do that for myself, then I should be able to extend that to other people. And I do like how, just in being so inherently messy, like, my room was a bomb site until about a week and a half ago. Like, we'll be real. It got to the point where by the time I had to clean that joint, Marianne didn't know what was and wasn't art. Like, these books behind us, they were, remember when they were all, I don't know how they didn't send your wall down.
For sure.
And she walked up and she was like, that's my favourite artwork you've ever made. And I was like, you know why that's really fucking funny, Marianne? That's the first non-artwork I've ever put in. Like, I didn't intend that to be an artwork for, like, the first time. And she's like, no, that's definitely an artwork. That's got to go in the show. So that became the set.
Nice.
So I feel like it wasn't conscious. Like, so often we do these papers and we're consciously trying to achieve something. Mine was a bit different in that I was just really depressed. Wasn't heading out to achieve anything. It was like, I'm just going to document myself trying to get more involved in the world. That was where it kind of started, and now is ending, you know?
That's really interesting. I mean, maybe I'm making assumptions as well. But like, my thing went, an idea that sharpened and then grew out to be a more complex version of the sharp bit in the middle. Yours just felt like, it's this. No, it's this. No, wait, it's this. No, hold on, it's this thing over here. And of course, it's all of them. And it's all of them. It's this bounce between, you know, a half-made drawing given to someone else to finish off. It's a conversation. You know, it's a stack of random, some German, some English kind of art books that you know, we suddenly have in the studio, and someone else is identifying as a kind of work.
I mean, there was this constant smoothing and rounding that I found really beautiful. And that, like, sure, I'm volatile enough that I was always finding new things, and like, you know, would get something into Marianne or Ben and they'd be like, oh, you know, consider something else. And so there was parts that, or like Joseph Boyes, that really opened up a lot of things for me to consider my work a bit more seriously perhaps than I was originally. But aside from my own kind of daily volatility and unpredictabilities, there was a nice kind of logic to the way others were shaping the work, and that was like, you can't predict what's going to happen.
Give us a couple of kind of examples of.
Yeah, well, I guess like when it started out, like Talking Dark. First one I did with Matt was with Matt.
Right. Yep.
Advertising, Matt and Adrian, and they were, you know, two close mates that kind of took me in when I was just out of rehab, getting ready to come here, and you know, I had less than an idea. I had no idea how to make the show. I had no idea how to host. I was shitting myself. But I just thought, you know, this seems like something I've wanted to do for quite a while, you know. But so it started just in trying to talk about Matt and Adrian as people around me I loved. And very quickly it started to develop. Like, my third interview was Nick, who I hadn't seen in 5 or 6 years. And, you know, story goes, Depp gave him a call and said, you got to buzz Ollie. He's, you know, he's raring to go now. And we met up and I interviewed him and it was awesome. And the next day he called me up and we started a band. And, you know, that's really allowed my music work to, like, all the music on Talking Dark Live, and everything has really accelerated now since Nick's coming into the fold. But so that all happened very early on, and then my fourth interview was kind of like, the first 4 happened in very quick succession, maybe 1 or 2 weeks between them. And my fourth one was talking to Lisa, who met in rehab. She had her own fucked up story about religious extremism.
That's right.
And that was when Talking Dark found the name Talking Dark and the identity as, you know, finding light in these uncomfortable spaces and kind of more dialing in on that unpredictable, conversational, you know, it was more intentionally trying to break the sense of artifice. And that was when I started considering, oh, okay, like, the phone is here recording and that's the only recording device, which started out of necessity, and then I realised, well, actually, not having a camera to self-surveil, you know, generate self-surveillance, and there were all these things I was doing kind of instinctually that I was like, oh, okay, no, this is methodology. Like, this is things I should be doing. Even like the clap, you know, the clap, turning on the green screen, you know, stupid things like that helps to break down the feeling of kind of vanity, like this awkward, like, why am I doing this? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think probably for me, on the flip side of that, viewing some of these, like the post-production and that kind of filmic collage, I'm going to call it, because it kind of runs like that. It's drawn from all sorts of sources. It's people's work, but it's sort of interspersed with all sorts of other stuff that I'm sure people have seen. I think that cuts, as constructed as that is, that also seems to cut through a little bit of the weird kind of, like, you know, we're having an interview and I'm asking you questions and you're answering them. Like, there's this, I don't know, like my on an experiential level, like I was watching Melinda answer. I was watching you ask questions, but my eye was always being caught on other imagery that was being sort of integrated into the experience. And so it just dialed back the human and just like that those edges just kind of were rounded off a little bit by that.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that too, because I mean, again, it happened.
I mean, we've giggled about some of the guest appearances from works that. Like hashtag Lindley George.
Oh yeah, you and Lindley particularly, the free floating cocks in the middle.
Too perfect.
But like, again, it was something that, because, you know, have to give a shout out to Deck, my, you know, best mate, who came and helped me set up and sat down for the first interview. And I mean, we were kind of laughing because I went and got the green screen, set it up, and we were kind of expecting, you know, a bit better than what it turned out as, like a nice crisp line around here. We just thought that'd disappear. But what we got was like Star Wars hologram, fucking Qui-Gon Jinn shit.
Totally,
And I kind of thought I remember thinking, oh, I fucking love that. That's really dope. And then I sent it to Deck. I'm like, oh, hey, Deck, the green screen's not working. And he actually said, I actually really like the look of that. I said, oh, thank God you said that, because That's what I was feeling about it.
Yeah, there's parts where it projects on the screen. On like I had my water bottle at one
Consuming
point.
the scent.
Yeah. I mean, art, life art. You know, human. Their work, the human. Like it just hilariously seemed to just kind of.
Yeah, I mean, some of the photometer students have explored that too. Kind of that humanizing element of shitty technology.
Yeah.
Or Jeff Clem with the, I can't remember what it was, but like the Mars rover and how the pixelation of space imagery has become part of common aesthetics now.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a bit of that informs the visual side of things.
But it's so interesting, right? Because as lo-fi as that is, I actually got this lovely shock when I first saw, I don't think who's one, I think Melinda's might have been the first one I watched. And I was like, oh, yeah, like there's some weird, funky kind of like overlap of visual into set and you know, like this thing we grabbed from the studio upstairs, like it's like rough as guards.
Yeah.
But I was actually kind of shocked at how considered and you know, like how, it's a weird way to put it, but like it was beautiful to watch. Like, so I shouldn't just say watch, because you know it is the music as well. It is all those other sort of elements that you kind of, you know, splice together there. Like it was beautiful to experience.
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating too, because like in that video or flattening together, it's interesting what we learn here at school, like relational aesthetics. Like how amazing is it when you learn what contrast does to things. And it's like if I had just tried to have this running the whole time, people might have scrutinised me like, that looks so shit house, looks amateur hour, you know, coming at you from 2005. But in starting the shot with just us in front of the green screen, which is normally a lot clearer than the shot of the thing, and you get, you know, stupid banging noise to
bit of visual static. Something kicks in.
You get that transformation that really kind of highlights the novelty of this thing.
Yes, that behind the camera, in front of the camera, simultaneously thing. Like it's again, it just, I think it diffuses the artifice in a way that like, feels really considered. That's nice. I like that a lot. Are we nearly? What do you reckon?
I'll switch over. I'll just switch over.
Yeah, let's do one more round.
One more. One more sounds good.
Now, this just in, police officers in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, were asking people to be on the lookout for a man who robbed a store. And I think we do have his description. Can we take that? Let's take his description. Okay, this is the guy they wanted people in Pennsylvania to be out on the lookout for. He's got a nose and some hair that goes like that, and he was wearing a hat at the time of this particular crime. He's got kind of a chin that comes down to almost a point. Stands about 5 feet 4 inches tall. There it is. Get a good look for yourself. Oh, and now I'm getting word that police actually caught this guy, thanks to the sketch, no doubt. So here's a picture of the real guy next to the sketch that led to his arrest.
Where's the pointy chin?
It's uncanny, Lisa.
Look like. Okay.
It's the sketch! It's the sketch! How is that possible? It turns out it was a good sketch. Hung fuck Nguyen. That ain't right. But look, you can see it. It's hung fuck Nguyen. Okay.
Uncanny, Lisa. The guy on the left is now charged with 2 counts of theft. Is being held in the Lancaster jail. And I say give that sketch artist a raise.
Rather than splashing around in the mud, drawing these organic shapes, I'm going to pretend I'm a tractor. Do you see the fishing weights doing lots of lines for me? I'm a sort of harrow going on, because I make noises. Yes, let's hope for the best.
for setting in, but this is my last
20
minutes of work, and then it's fucking done.
That's pretty hilarious, because I just checked my phone, and our grad show is on for another 26 minutes. I think we've got left.
Very fitting.
Yeah, it's 4:34.
Got started just in time. We'll get it done just in time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, how do we sort of close this out? I mean, I kind of, you know, we've been sort of talking about this idea that, like, you know, this thing, this grad show, all that kind of stuff is kind of great, but you know, you've just made work the whole way through the grad show. You know, I kind of politely, you know, took on board the kind of pageantry that it is, but I'm just want to get on with some work. Like, what's the how do we kind of wrap this up?
Yeah, well, actually, I was going to talk to you about this off camera, but maybe I can address it now. Is an important part of doing these was not just giving you guys space to talk about your shit. It was consolidating these relationships we've built, and you know, make no mistake, I may have, over the course of 2 years, spat a lot of shit about the arts and how the arts isn't doing enough for me and how I like other things better, but the reality is I've really come full circle in a big way by the time my paper's gone in. And by the time I submitted my paper, I realised, wow, I'm actually more invested in being a part of shows and being a part of, an active part of the art world than I ever was in my previous degree or any other time. So I am going to set myself a minimum bar to set. I don't know what that bar should be. Maybe you can help me set that, whether that's 2 shows, 4 shows, 1 show a year as my kind of bare minimum. But yeah, I mean, like, as I said, I've got a book to write and I've got content to make, which will keep me busy, but you know, I also want to keep making shit. Like, I've got copper sculptures that I've been putting off in wanting to round out these things with Tara. There's paperworks I want to keep making. There's Bibles I want to burn, you know? That old workshop. There's so much collaboration I want to do, and you know, even like with you, say, Luke, it's you know, we've been quite close in the you know, studios next to each other. You're like a big bro at this stage, but it's it also kind of sucks for me that, like Melinda was saying the other day, I'm feeling really sad about leaving, and I was like, you know what, I'm not that sad, you know, because if I stayed, Marianne's going to give me more papers to do. You know, like for me, I feel very freed by the fact that, you know, maybe one day I can call Luke and we can actually do something meaningful together. You know, that'll go somewhere. I just want this to be the start of more collaborative work, because I need it, you know.
It feels fundamental to your practice, but your practice and your life are so interchangeable that it feels fundamental to just you as a person as well. Well, mate, bring it on. Bring it on. I mean, it's kind of it's you know, world shut itself not long ago, and planning ahead has felt like just at best wishful thinking, but I think that's where we're at now.
I mean, how good that we, you know, still have this. I know people at our school and not far from us socially that are just like, oh my God, how did you have such a great community? And you know, I can only be thankful to all of you guys, as you know, Marianne, everyone, but even John, even everyone has contributed in their own ways to making me feel very safe at a time where I was very scared, you know, and I'm not good when I'm scared. I'm like a dog back in the fucking corner. And that's when you hear me shuffling in.
the slow footsteps. But I guess that's, I mean, maybe that's a nice way of kind of, you know, summing some stuff up. I mean, Marianne's interview was really interesting. I love that idea of her talking about, you know, things like drawing as a way of just being in the world. And you know, I think for you, probably the extension of that is your practice is a way of being with other people in the world, and I really love that too.
Yeah, I think we're a little bit similar in that way. It was nice that she said, I actually draw to make me less nervous.
Yeah, totally.
Which, not like her to utter, but
Yeah.
I'm very much the same in that even if I have criticisms of the art world,
Yep.
like when that first lockdown happened, it took me 2 weeks of playing guitar before I was like, I need to make something
Yeah.
or I'm going to run onto the harbour bridge and jump off
Yeah.
it, you know?
Yeah.
Like there's...
Yeah, make you find the work.
Yeah, there's a strange attachment to cognition that seems
Yeah.
to
for sure.
drive most of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess we look out for more Talking Dark, a bunch more guests, some of the longer form ones.
Yeah.
Whole lot of printmaking, new soundtracks.
It's all coming at you. Moonshine.
Yeah,
In a year's time, we'll be running.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, thanks so much for doing this, bro.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. And I reckon that's a wrap for Talking Dark 2022.
Nice. Talk off camera.
Yeah.
Beauty.
I'd like to take a few minutes of your time, if I may, and tell you how very much we appreciate you allowing us into your home. We hope you've enjoyed this series. And something that you never see that I'd like to take a minute, I'd like to thank all the fantastic people here that have made this possible. You don't see all the people that are behind the cameras, and they too deserve credit. So, right here and publicly now, I would like to tell each and every one of them from the bottom of my heart that I thank them for everything they've done for us. And I thank you more than anyone. Let us hear from you. Let us know what you want to see. And on behalf of all of us here, we really hope to see you again in the very near future. We wish you the absolute best that life has to offer. Once again, have a super day. God bless. We look forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye.